the Glebe peg 25. This is a nice big charity match, so open to all anglers. This is late one. Unfortunately, the wind's blowing down the other end. I think we're at the wrong end, but we're in good company. We've got the Finn, gives away Finn. We've got the Finn next door.
Feel intimidated.
He says he feels intimidated. I think it's the other way around. We've got Lee Hodgkinson just past the Finn. Jamie Adcott on the end peg. I think the end peg could chuck up some fish today. But, like I say, I think we're at the wrong end. Let's have a look at the approach. I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. So, bait-wise, we've got some swim stim micros, a few casters, just in case we need to make something happen. That's going to be our shallow water bait, so micros and casters through a feeder or in the margin. Maggot, maybe a bit of worm or corn on the hook, and then maybe in the deep water, or if we think we need to feed a bigger bait, sweet corn. We've got a couple of tins in reserve just in case. Let's have a look at the rigs. We've got feeder rod set up, just clipped him up so he still got his bomb on. We've got our feeder rod set up. It's an 11-foot carp feeder, if we can focus in on that. I always think 11-footer here is good because it's chucked probably 30 metres average on a lot of pegs. And then we've got our rigs, and I've just set up 3 different rigs to cover sort of 3 different depths. So as you look along there, you can see the different depths. Got a rig for 4.5 foot, a rig for 3.5 foot, and then a rig for tight in the edge in 2 foot, I'm saying. Yeah, about 2 foot. So they're all Malman Rubes, all shotted with either a little bulk or a little strung bulk, all on 020 mainline, 018 hook length, size 12 or size 14 hook on. Nice strong elastic. I get the feeling that the last part of this match could be really important, so I think we need to catch our fish fast. I don't know if we've got a bit of stuff on the camera there. Let's see. No, it's just not focusing properly. So I think the last hour or so, that's where we're going to catch our fish, and we need to catch them nice and fast. I've got a mugging rig set up as well because there might be an odd cruiser. Look at him. Little dibber, little Malman dibber. Set 16-inch deep. Try and drop it on a few fish's heads. Put a little robin red pellet in the band there. Hopefully we'll catch a few fish. I think target weight is to maybe stay within 100 pound of the fin. Wish me luck. Now, quite often at the Glebe, especially if it's flat calm, I like to start off by mugging an odd fish. See if I can spot any cruising fish, drop the bait in front of them. Hopefully I can catch a few fish without feeding any bait or ruining any areas of my swim. This occasion though, no muggers can be to be seen. I thought best to start on a feeder. Finn had started on a feeder. Finn was straight into fish. He's really got that feeder sorted out at the Glebe. He's fishing pellets with an expander on a hair rig. Myself though, I'm using micro pellets, a few casters in the feeder, and then 3-4 red maggots on the hook. You know, pretty standard stuff that I've caught loads of fish on in the past. But on this occasion, it seemed to take an age for me to start getting indications and actually hooking fish properly. I've only managed to catch 2 fish early on the feeder. Both of those fish have tried to pull my arm off as soon as I hooked them, and both of them weren't exactly massive by Glebe standards, probably about 3 or 4 pound a piece. Now it's worth talking about feeder fishing at the Glebe. You're not allowed method feeders. You have to have 20 inches of hook length hanging below your feeder when you cast out. So it's all about traditional cage feeder style fishing. Now casting to the far bank becomes really important because obviously if you've got that long hook length, which could potentially snag up on the far bank. Now I like to think my casting is pretty good. Finn's casting was absolutely brilliant. He was chucking it in a little tiny hole on the far bank and consistently plopping it in that same spot over and over again. Obviously he's got loads of confidence in that micro pellet and expander combination, and probably at the halfway stage of the match, Finn, I'm saying, have got about 40 pounds. I'd got 2 fish at that point. It was time for me to start thinking about other things. With Finn so far ahead, I knew I had to make something happen. There'd been the odd fish, and it was the very, very odd fish cruising around. And I knew that if I could keep my peg nice and quiet, I might get an odd fish to cruise through my peg and might be able to mug them. The wind had dropped slightly, the sun was coming in and out, and every time the sun would come out from behind them clouds, the fish would rise up a little bit higher, I could spot the fish. Now, again, there's rules at the Glebe. Mugging at the Glebe, you're not allowed to stand up to mug fish. I love to stand up, you get a better point of view, you can see the fish a lot easier, but you have to sit down at the Glebe. That means you've got to be really cute about the shadows and where you spot the fish, because some pegs have got good shadows on them, some pegs you can't see the fish because the whole of the water in front of you is white water. I'm using some Fortis Polaroid glasses, which, to be fair, it's the first time I've used these glasses. They were really good on the day. The lenses were perfect for the light conditions, and a good pair of Polaroids is essential when you're mugging fish, that's without a doubt. The bait for mugging these fish was a 6mm hard pellet, a nice hard bait that makes a nice little plop as it hits the water surface. The rig was a tiny little Malman dibber. It takes 1 number 10 plus the pellet to cock it nicely. I've got around 80 centimetres of line between the pole tip and the float. I don't like a really long line when I'm mugging fish, especially on a venue that doesn't allow slapping the rig over, because it becomes really difficult to control the float and any sort of wind drifts the float out of position. So about 16 inches below the float, 80 centimetres above the float, plopping it in front of fish, and I reckon out of every 10 fish that I've probably had a go at, 2 of them have took the bait. It wasn't fast going, but there was an odd fish to be had on the surface. Now, Finn had slowed down massively on the feeder. It seemed that the fish had stopped feeding for whatever reason and they were just cruising around, milling around in the upper layers. There wasn't many fish down our end, that was for sure, but I was ticking over, and slowly but surely I was pulling back. The fish I was catching were big fish as well. Feeder fish at the Glebe and the ones that Finn was catching seemed to average out at about £3 a piece, whereas the fish I was catching, mugging fish, they were big cruising fish. Some of them 8, 9, £10 each. Big lumps that are adding massive amounts of weight to my final tally. Now, as with a lot of commercial fisheries, the margins I knew were going to make or break my day. I needed a late run in the edge. I made a big gamble. While I was mugging fish, I was feeding bait all the time in my edge. I just couldn't get fish to come in though. That small amount of bait, it just wasn't appetising enough for those fish to come in and settle. An odd fish would come in and quickly zoom out of the swim. What I needed to do was gamble. I fed in one go about 2, maybe 3 pints of micro pellets, all in one go, threw it in. I think sometimes doing this replicates maybe an angler packing up and the fish just come in en masse. And what happened on this particular day was 2 or 3 fish would settle in the peg and feed for much longer than they had been doing. I could then rattle in a bit of corn over the top, fish double corn as a hook bait, and I had an amazing run of fish up until the end of the match.
a fantastic day's fishing, as you always get at the Glebe. We've had 159 pounds, big carp late on in the edge, literally down there on a top kit. Incredible fishing. So let's talk about the section. We've got a 162 pound on the end peg that way, and then Jamie Adcott on the end peg down there, peg 30, has won the section with 166. Fortunately for me, they pay 3 in a section today, so I've won some money. I've beat one of my angling heroes as well. Finn just didn't seem to catch in his edge. He's absolutely annihilated me on the feeder, and then he's struggled in the edge. And you know what? It's been a beautiful day. We've caught a load of fish. I'm more than happy. Until next time, folks, tight lines.